everybody, welcome to the Dad Challenge Podcast. My name is Josh. Thanks for joining me. Well, today we're talking about Shari Franke from the 8 Passengers family. I've been covering them for a lot of years. Shari Franke is the daughter of Ruby, and Ruby was the matriarch of the 8 Passengers family. I'm pretty sure she's getting divorced now. Their whole family is falling apart. And I honestly believe that it all comes back to the exploitation of their children online and the fact that they were fake to everybody in the world and their kids woke up to it later. That's what I think. Shari came out on a podcast, which I've got 180,000 messages to cover, and I had a really, really nice person send me the timestamps because I didn't have time to listen to the whole hour. So I just want to say shout out to you. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy your merch. Anyway, we're going to go through this podcast, look at those timestamps, and take a look at what Shari has to say, because I think it's going to be very important for these kids to continue to speak out against the lives that they led so that other people will not do it. Although we know that these people are greedy bastards and they'll continue to do it. They will just continue. They don't give a shit about kids. But hopefully some will wake up. And I hope that stories like Shari Franke's story and everybody else wakes some people up. That's what I'm hoping for. So let's take a look at this and we'll talk about it. So it's a podcast called Into the Light, D&C, Breaking Free from the Learned Norm. Shari Franke's story of personal empowerment in finding a relationship with Jesus. So they're obviously a Mormon podcast because Shari Franke is a Mormon. And Shari Franke grew up in a Mormon home. Her dad is literally a BYU professor. I don't know if he is anymore, but he was. Pretty sure he is. They were very, very strict Mormons. But it's odd that these strict Mormons that we always watch have no problem exploiting children. I always found that kind of odd, considering that's like totally immoral in almost every single way. We've seen so many times that Ruby was a disgusting piece of garbage mother too, and would stop at nothing. And they made millions of dollars on YouTube, okay? They made millions. And so I'm glad the kids are speaking up now. Unfortunately, their whole family had to fall apart for them to be brave enough to speak up. And that's really sad about this thing. But we're going to listen to the beginning of the episode, and then we're going to go to these timestamps I was provided. So let's have a look.
Welcome back to Into the Light. We have a special guest on our podcast today. Her name is Shari Franke, and I'm going to let Aaron introduce her to us.
Boy, do we have an episode for you guys today.
Everybody starts a podcast in their kitchen. Just treat your room, please.
We were just having a conversation off mic with Shari, and wow, we have so many things that we could talk about. We're going to keep this very gospel-focused and gospel-oriented and talk about the Savior, as we always do. As
Mormons always do. Guys, if you ever hear a Mormon, and I know this is kicking it off on the wrong foot already, if you ever hear a Mormon talk about the gospel and the Savior, don't listen to the Mormons, okay? The Mormons are wrong. They're absolutely 100% wrong about the Gospels and who Jesus is. The Mormons literally have their own book called the Book of Mormon, which was deciphered by a dude named Joseph Smith, who married a 14-year-old girl, by the way. Also, stuck his head in a hat with some stones and was like, this is what it says, right? Branch Davidian vibes, what I'm saying. So don't listen to any Mormon that ever talks about the gospel. It's bullshit, because everything they say is negated by the Book of Mormon. Their heaven, their idea, their theology, and everything. And I'm just basing this on my theology. That's what I'm saying. Mormons are wrong. Cool? All right, just want to say that at the top before people start listening to this bullshit.
But Shari is someone that we've come to know. She lives nearby and is a part of our ward and is an awesome member of our ward.
Our ward. If you have to say someone's a part of your ward, cult vibes.
Great friend of ours. So thanks for coming on, Shari.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited about this. Shari's one of the most happy people ever.
Oh gosh.
She comes to church. She has a smile on her face, and I'm like, gosh, I want some of what she has, and I don't know what it is.
She does have she has an awesome smile.
Okay, I'm gonna skip to it. I can't do this. When they blow smoke up each other's ass for these interviews, I can't do it. 502.
How was it growing up being on camera all the time?
Here we go.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah, so I started being on camera. I should remember the exact age. I was like 12, maybe 13-ish.
Yeah.
I thought it was strange at first, honestly. I was like, this is weird. Like, we take a camera with us everywhere.
Was that legit?
Yeah, we took a camera when we'd go on vacations. We'd film going to the store. We'd just always kind of film everything. But over the years, I got used to it more. It's this is our job. This is how...
Notice what she says there. That's really important. This is our job, because the parents put that on the children. They tell the kids, this is our job. You're part of this. What they don't tell the kids is that you are responsible for paying our bills. And if you're on the video, we don't get paid. That's it. These people, and Ruby used the two oldest, I think it's the two oldest, the Shari and the brother, to be like that. They brought a lot of creepers to the yard, that's for sure. And they would tell these kids, and these kids understand that they are working. They understand that, even from a young age, 12, 13 years old. This is our job. And I'll say this, like I've said a million times, it should never be a child's job to pay the parents' bills, ever.
You pay for vacations. This is how we get to do fun stuff. Like, you don't love it every day, but you do it because it's work.
Imagine that, a child working. And hear what she just said, because it's how we pay for our vacations. It's how we get to do fun stuff. But you get to go do those fun things to film them. You never get away from the work. It's not like, we're not going to film this one, everybody. We're just going to go on a family vacation. The camera's off. Nope. We need this for content because we need to make money on it. These kids never led a normal life.
But even still to this day, I get embarrassed to go out and like film in public, even though I've been doing it for like 8 years. Yeah. I go out by myself. I'm like hiding the camera on my stomach, and it's, yeah.
Dude, when I film in my car,
Don't do it then.
And I can't imagine in person or like out in the public. Did that ever get hard? Like being
She just said it did.
in the limelight all the time?
Yeah, it got hard, especially
growing up.
Yeah, growing up. I mean, junior high phase, just I don't think it was great for anybody.
Yeah. Oh no.
That's
Would not
Hear what she's admitting here. And she's saying embarrassing moments in junior high that were filmed for the camera.
life on camera.
Yeah. And then I feel like as I got older, people got like meaner in the comments. They would say things like, "Oh, she's just a Molly Mormon. Like she's just gonna grow up, become a baby making machine." Like,
Oh my gosh.
just because she's a member of the church. And so there was a lot of attack on
At
religion.
13.
Yeah. So that. Like,
And that's gross. If you think about that for a second, there were adults commenting on a 13-year-old girl saying she's just going to grow up to be a baby machine. And who put her on the internet to get those comments, right? All these parents don't seem to realize, and we can go through anybody, any family vlogger out there, on Instagram, on TikTok, or YouTube. And if you see a kid in some kind of position or growing up online, having their period or whatever, anything, dressing provocatively, whatever, you will always find creepers in the comments. What you won't find is these moms and dads deleting those comments. They leave that shit up there. And it's getting so gross and disgusting. These peas, these Plutos who are out there doing that, okay, they're not even hiding it anymore. They don't give a shit because it's so accepted, right? We're moving towards this thing where it's just like, oh, yeah, it is social media. You're just going to have to go with the predators. They're going to be there. Nothing we can do about it. She's telling you from a young age she was told this. Imagine your 12-year-old daughter has said, oh, you're just going to grow up to be a baby making machine. You said that to your daughter. I would knock you the F out. I'd be, excuse me? Right? But it's okay because online it's separated. But what you don't realize is that's even more dangerous because these are people who could be anonymous, could be stalking you. These are predators. It's more dangerous, people.
there was a lot of attack on religion. People made fun of me because, like, I took school seriously, and they were like, she needs a life, and which, like, I agree, I did need a life besides school, but
it was not hopeful. You had like people have like the typical bully and like the person making fun
but
of
it
you
was
at
like
school. strangers who are grown adults.
Yeah. You don't see anything wrong with that?
How did that affect you as a young kid?
I found myself, like, I would tell myself, it doesn't matter what they say, like, I know how I feel about myself, and I think I believed that for a while, but I always would find myself just, like, checking comments on Instagram, on YouTube, just to see what people had said about me.
Boom. Shari, thank you for saying it. This is one of the most important things she'll ever say. You need to listen to that very closely. I found myself as a 12 to 13-year-old checking the comments on Instagram and YouTube about things people were saying about me. Kids won't be able to get away from that. Kids aren't just be like, oh, ignore it. Kids can't. Okay, that's just the way it works. Adults can't. So kids definitely can't. And she was sitting there reading these comments, and her mom wasn't monitoring that. This is supposed to be a good Mormon mom who's like, we're amazing. You didn't notice that your daughter was reading comments about her online? That's one of the scariest things. Some will even sit down like Jonathan Sakona-Jolie with this whole thing with his daughter. He's trans and has become the star of the show. He will sit down with his trans daughter and will read hate comments, and the Edie will be like, F you, and give the finger and say the F word and all the stuff and be like, screw all you. We'll read hate comments for content with their children. This happens a lot. Just Fam does it too. A lot of families will do this. How dare you? You're already putting them in danger, and then you're going to be like, look at all these hateful people have to say about you. Let's make a video about it. Can you imagine? Oh my God, the people.
Whether it be good or bad, you feel like it was okay.
Because I just wanted to like be aware of what people were saying, I guess, and that probably got to like an unhealthy point where I was just checking all the time.
Yep.
And even through college, sometimes I've had to just like check and check and check. And,
Really?
Yeah. So luckily.
What do you expect? Really? This person's like, well, her mother put her online for her whole life. She made her famous with her informed consent. Now, Shari's an adult now, and she can make the choices she wants to make, and she feels like she needs to do this to make money. Likely because the family spent all the money they made on YouTube. I'm pretty sure we've even heard Ruby say she was never going to give her kids money. It's not their money. When they're 18, they're out. They're on their own. When her kids are the ones who made her the money. If they didn't get any money from a nest egg that they had from YouTube, I would sue Shari, I know you're listening to this. I would sue the living shit out of your parents for not giving you the money that you earned on that channel. That is your money. Regardless of whether or not your mother made consent for you, she still made the consent. You were still the star of the show. You were still in those videos. You deserve tons of money. You don't need to be on YouTube making it now. But it sounds like that's what happened here. Did they squander it all? And if they did, on what?
I'm like breaking that habit, which is nice.
That's
but
off. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I just think about how in middle school, like Instagram and Snapchat and like all those things were very much like, oh, this is like the cool thing to do.
Oh yeah,
but
like the dog filters.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like
It's crazy to me that this Mormon family who is all about like purity culture and everything else lets their kids on Snapchat. Do me a favor, and this is, I think most parents are starting to catch on to this. Don't let your children have access to the internet on a smartphone until they're at least 16 to 17 years old. And I'm not even kidding. My wife and I have been going back and forth. Should we get her? We're going to get her the old school one where you can call, right? That's it. Or the watch where you can call on it. That's it. My daughter is not going to have unfettered access, neither is my son, to the internet until she is like way older. I don't care. All of her friends in high school, I don't care. The protection of your children is how you show love. And look, they're not going to like it. They're not. They might even be super upset and be, they hate you. I don't care. At this point, it doesn't matter what they feel as long as you're protecting them, because in the end, they'll thank you. You don't, this is the whole where we are right now with parents in this, and I've been talking about this a lot, about the ideologies and stuff we're pushing on kids. Okay? No. You're the parent. Okay? You protect your kids at all costs. You do not affirm mental illnesses in your children. And I know this is a conversation that gets me a lot of hate, okay? But we're talking about kids, and especially when it comes to puberty blockers and things like that. That's one big thing that I'm like a big no on. Okay, we're not letting our kids get tattoos, smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol, vote, drive, choose their bedtime or what they eat for the most part. But you're going to let your kid choose to stop puberty. Okay, this is a world we live in right now where parents are like, I have to affirm and my child gets to be who they are at all times and whatever. Nope. That's the pendulum is swinging back, and it has to, because we're creating this whole community of children who are going to grow up to be like, if you don't affirm me, I can't live. That's the problem. That's the danger. Okay. And so when these families do this, they allow their children on social media is what's fed this freaking social contagion, by the way. We didn't have any of this issue before social media came around, by the way. And it's louder than it's ever been because of TikTok, by the way. So you as a parent, do me a favor. Listen closely. This is advice where I know I'm right. I know I'm not always right about everything, but I know I'm right about this advice. Do not let your kid on social media. Not until they're old enough to make those choices. And I mean like license age. Okay? Don't let them. Do not let them be babysit on TikTok, on Snapchat, on Instagram, YouTube. Don't let these social media platforms babysit your children and indoctrinate them. Okay? And people are like, well, the church is the same. Agreed. Don't let anybody indoctrinate your children. How about that? Raise them with your values. That's it. Raise them to love people, to be awesome people, to support one another. Raise them to be great. Raise them to be gentle and kind. Raise them to be patient. Raise them in these ways, and you can eliminate church, you can eliminate trans ideology, all these other religions out there. You do that, and everything will be okay. But do not affirm and let your children choose those paths that could destroy their lives. Okay? Cool.
It's like social media, right? Yeah. But like you were in social media versus watching it from like a middle schooler's perspective.
You were a quote unquote influencer before influencers were really that a thing.
Pretty cool.
That's not
You are
cool.
cool, Shari. That's why we love talking with you.
On the Into the Light podcast, as you know, we talk a lot about trials and things that people have overcome. So you've had your fair share of trials in your life. When did all that start, and how has it affected you?
Yeah, so when I was in 10th grade, so I was like 15, my family joined a group, like a mental health, kind of like a self-help group, basically.
Connections.
Because we wanted to, grow closer as a family. We wanted each of us individually to become more, like, self-sufficient and
Growth oriented.
growth oriented.
Well, how'd that turn out? Because all it seemed to do was explode your family. So I know what Sherry's saying. This isn't a thing against Sherry, but Sherry's like, my mom said we're going to do this connections thing because we want to grow closer as a family, blah, blah. How did that turn out? Okay, because look at it now. Your family is gone. You are now a broken family.
And so we started in this group.
Again, that's against Ruby and douche Franke. That's against Ruby and her husband, not against these children.
And I think it was great at first. Like, we were learning like a new, learning lingo for stuff, and we were able to communicate
Distortion.
in ways that we understood each other. And then, when we interact with other people and we'd use the same language, like, they were very confused. They were like, I don't understand what you're saying.
Don't live in distortion. I'm telling my mom. What is distort? What do you mean?
And so, in a sense, I feel like that brought us closer as a family because we knew what the other person, how they thought. We knew, how we could communicate with each other. And then as, the years progressed, this group became more extreme. And
Culty.
they began to equate, their curriculum and their teachings kind of with the gospel, in a sense.
Culty.
So at first it wasn't with the gospel.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I never remembered that. Maybe they said it and I just forgot it.
Yeah.
But
When do you feel like, what was the thing that made you become more aware that they were equating it?
I think when they started talking about God while they were also talking about their same curriculum and stuff.
Self-help.
Yeah.
Growth.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so I was like, oh, well, the gospel and this go together. If I live this curriculum well, then I'll be a better church member.
That's the Mormon church, everybody. That's not just Connections. That's obviously Connections is a Mormon, outset of the Latter-day Saints. But that's it. That's most religions too. That's Wealth and Prosperity Ministries in the gospel too. That's the modern church is this, not just Mormons. That's it. It's a self-help with gospel tied into it. And it's not the way the gospel was meant to be portrayed to people. The gospel is harsh, it's loving, it's rebuking, and it's hopeful. But it's not like, do you, yes, queen, whatever you need, I'll affirm it. It's not what it is. And that's what all these churches are starting to do.
And vice versa. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
And I think we should throw a disclaimer out there that life coaching is a very controversial space right now in the mental health field.
Yes.
Because
there's low accountability.
There's very low accountability. You don't need a license to become, there's no state certification for life coaching. And so you have to be very, very, very careful and research very deeply if you turn to life coaching.
Well, I think that ties directly into influencing culture too. People who go to these people because they think they know what they're talking about, that's just as bad, if not more dangerous. Okay, people are like, oh, show me everything you do. I want to copy everything you do. Like influencer culture. Maybe you need to be licensed to be an influencer. Because some of the shit these people put out, and I'm going to do a video really soon, probably tomorrow, on this girl whose whole freaking content is like, look at me, I'm a mom who smokes weed and drinks wine, and that's her whole thing. That's it. And I'm going to talk about how shitty that is. Okay? Because it's just like anything. Whatever you put online lives forever, and that's the legacy you're leaving your children. Same goes for this, guys. These influencers out here saying shit and making stuff up, it's not real. None of it is. They're not licensed to say any of this shit, but they're paid heavily to do this. When there are real people, licensed professionals out there who cost a bit of money, who are out there going to school for all this shit, and yet you're going to go to some influencer and be like, everybody wants to know what my mental health routine is, let's go through it. No, man! Don't listen to any of these people. Influencers should be a pariah on the world and should always be ignored when it comes to very serious issues. If you want to know what bottle they have, you know what water bottle they're sipping out of, or even a skincare routine or whatever, fine. Whatever, okay? It is what it is. But don't ever go to influencers for anything like parenting advice, so, mental health advice, none of it, okay? Because they're all mentally ill. You can't be this type of person without some degree of mental illness, is what I'm saying. Not everybody, but for the vast majority, and some of that mental illness a lot has to do with, obviously, narcissism, okay? So let's move on.
As far as credibility goes, definitely therapists and counselors have more official credentials.
So this was a life coach group?
Yes.
Okay. Now I understand. So how did you feel about it? Like,
yeah, so I remember going into it, and one of the people had said to me, like, I don't think you have a lot of, like, empathy for other people and a lot of compassion for other people.
And you know what? Probably because she was raised by someone like Ruby Franke, who doesn't have a lot of empathy or compassion for her own children. And we've seen that time and time again. There's proof positive where she stops at an accident so she can film it, where she doesn't send her kid her 5-year-old to school with a lunch. She's like, well, that shouldn't make her lunch. That let her pay for it. Where she shows her kids shaving her legs, her periods, starting their periods online, showing their punishments. She doesn't, and without any like loving nature whatsoever. It's like, Shari turned out the way she turned out because of who Ruby was. That's it. It's not Shari's fault.
Individually?
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm going to work on it. And so I would say my prayers at night and be like, Heavenly Father, like, why don't I have empathy? Like, please help me to, like, have it. And
because you were never modeled empathy. Your children, again, this comes back to all the ideologies, even religion, okay, even Christianity and everything else. If you don't think like, and I've said this, and I know it's very controversial, but if you've got a vegan cat, we know who's making the decisions. If you've got a 4-year-old who's transgender, we know who's making the decision. If you've got a 4-year-old at a church raising their hands and speaking in tongues, we know who's making the decisions. Your children will become what you model to them. It's just the way it is. They are very susceptible to being modeled, to being coerced, to being tricked, to being educated, all those things. This is why all this ideology is in schools right now, because that's where they need to start it. And you know it. I know, and you know it. And I know people are going to be like, you're a Nazi. I don't care. I don't give a shit. That is exactly what's going on. It's exactly what the Mormons did here too, and Christians too. Don't get me wrong. It's all religious. Okay, all of it's religious. So I don't want to just be, oh, you're just talking about one thing. No, that's all of them, everybody. If you've never seen it, go watch Jesus Camp. And you tell me that's not one of the scariest things you've ever seen in your life. Okay? There is benefits to doing lots of things. Okay? But making your kid a religious zealot, no matter what the religion, is not it.
I mean, obviously, everyone could have more empathy, I think, but I don't think I was, like, deprived of empathy. Yeah.
Cold-hearted.
Yeah.
So I get Shari.
You are absolutely deprived of empathy. Okay, absolutely.
I think she's cold-hearted.
Unempathetic is the first word that comes to mind. Just kidding. It's like the last thing.
Oh, man. So I look back at, like, a lot of the things that I prayed for at that age, and I, like, feel bad for myself that I was, like, so concerned with, like, help me be clean, help me be empathetic, like, I don't know what to do. And then I feel like I would work on it, and then I would go and talk with these people, and they'd say, you're still not getting it. And I would just, like, lose my mind over, like, what else am I supposed to do? Like,
what was the benchmark for them? Like, what was the standard?
That's hard.
Yeah, I don't know. So, like, every week we would keep track of, like, how many times you used black and white thinking, how many times you, like, denigrated yourself.
Black and white thinking. With Mormon religious, like, fundamentalists. Fundamentalists are black and white. That's it. There are some things I'm black and white on, of course. When it comes to religion and it comes to the Bible, especially my theology, a lot has changed. Okay? But Shari's confused here because she's like, what have you thought about black and white? Your whole religion is black and white. That's crazy.
And so it was, like, a very... Like, I was always focused on the negative things that I was doing, and had to report on those. And so I started to notice those things in, like, other people as well. So, like, I would look at somebody and say, your eyes look dark. Like, you're hiding something. And I still find myself to this day, sometimes I make snap judgments about people.
I have brown eyes, so I'm evil.
Like, crap, no, I don't want to do that. So it's like, it's taken a lot of work, and still is, to like undo that kind of like snap judgment mentality about me and other people.
So how long were you, I guess, actively involved in this before you decided to?
Yeah, so I was in 10th grade when I joined.
No. You were in 10th grade when your mother forced you to join. I know she doesn't want to throw her mom under the bus here, but let's be real. Shari's not the one being like, let's go join Connections. This is Shari, and we knew this because years before she was done with 8 Passengers, she made a video saying, we're doing this parenting thing. I'm going to be a parenting coach, and we laughed at her. She forced her family to be a part of this cultic thing, right? And it ended up destroying her family.
And
I guess, sorry to interrupt, if you feel comfortable saying, what is the joining process?
Like do you have to sign up?
So the joining process for it, like you can pay for like workbooks online. They have like weekly conferences you can join. You can do like one-on-one sessions with the
Mormon grift is actually, if you think about it, is really impressive. Okay, people who are Mormons will grift on other Mormons. Same church. Church does the same thing, especially when it comes to Hillsong and shit like that. These people will grift off each other. Okay, the Mormons will watch Mormon content like 8 Passengers, like Bonnie Holine, and all those. Like, there's so many Mormon influencers out there, and they have a massive audience because Mormons will only ingest Mormon content because they feel safe with that content. Mormons don't like step out into the world outside of their, like, not real Mormons, okay? They're not like out there in the real world. They're not. They stay in their little sheltered echo chambers because it's so important. They are taught that from a young age to do that because they don't want any outside influence to change people's mind. Any Mormon that is influenced by the outside, and I mean like a high percentage of people who have entered into the real world as a Mormon, are no longer Mormons. Because once they get a hint of realistic, of common sense and realism, they realize that their religion is a bullshit lie. That's it. It's so scary. Even those who have been converted to Christian, okay? Because Christian theology, in my opinion, again, I could be wrong about this, but the reason I think the Christian theology, like the theology of Jesus Christ, is real, is the one that is real over the 4,000 religions that exist, is because it's the only religion, and I just watched The Passion yesterday. You guys should go watch Passion of the Christ. Is the only time where Jesus said, forgive them, they know not what they do. When he's speaking on the Mount, he's saying, love your enemies. He's saying, love everybody no matter what they do to you. Turn the other cheek. It's the only religion like that preaches that type of gospel. Okay, where it's like you need to love everyone no matter what. That's why it's real to me. Mormons, just take a look at their history. If you grow up in a Mormon family and you decide to leave that religion, what happens to you? You're excommunicated. Okay, there's no room for that. With Christians, people want their kids to grow up in that world, but I know so many who decided they just didn't want to go anymore, and I never heard those parents say, I'm so pissed. They might be sad that their kid doesn't want to go to church anymore, but they don't blame them half the time. I know so many parents of children who don't want to go to church anymore once they turn that age, and they don't throw them out of the house. They don't excommunicate them from the family. They don't stop talking to them. It doesn't work that way because we're called not to. Now, I hate religion. Obviously, I hate the way the modern church is situated as it is right now. But I'm just saying that's why I use Christian theology in the Bible to paying off of, right? That's why I use that. And you might not believe it, but that's the reason I believe. That's why it matters when you say something like that. If your religion calls you to excommunicate people because they don't believe what you believe anymore, that's false, right? And I know that people are like, well, the church got it wrong. Of course the church has got it wrong. A million ways from Sunday it's got it wrong. Okay, but if the church did the thing it was supposed to do, we would be in a better place today. But no church, in my opinion, has done what it was supposed to do. Once money became involved, once salaries and like fame, all that shit entered, and that's been since the dawn of time. Once that, and I'm talking to modern churches, once all that shit started happening, how many celebrity pastors existed in the 50s, 60s, 40s, whatever? Right? When celebrity pastors didn't start really becoming a thing until the 70s, when television sort of really became everything. Okay, those churches from the old days, even from the 1800s onwards, where churches were starting to make big movements, those big movements of Jesus, okay? None of them were celebrities. There were some, don't get me wrong, there were a couple. But even the ones from the back in the day, the Grahams and stuff like that, they were celebrities, but they didn't really like have private planes and shit like that. It's all changed because of the way modern media has shaped us. And that is what changed the church. So I don't know why I said that, but it just made me think of it.
Coach, it does involve like paying to get in. So
Yeah.
The grift.
but they also do like social media stuff, and some people just look at that and they're like, yeah, this is great.
Sounds like a basic life coaching
Yeah.
company.
Yeah. So, like I said, I joined it when I was in 10th grade. I got like more strongly involved throughout high school, so I graduated like very much on board with all of it. And then I came to college, and I mean, high school was like a bubble within a bubble within a bubble. And then I broke out of one.
And your mom was super controlling of the bubbles you were in, and the fact that you had to be home to film and everything else. You weren't actually allowed to have a childhood because it was filmed. So that's, she's separate, but she's right.
Bubbles. When I came to BYU, still in some bubbles, but less.
Yeah, she went to, imagine going to BYU, which is Brigham Young University, a Mormon university, and being, pilled out of that grift.
So I started to, like, interacting with roommates and people that I hadn't met. I was very judgmental. I was like, wow, she's wearing that. Like, she's going to hell. Wow, she's wearing that.
That's her mom.
So mad at her. Or, so, like, I was still, like, I believe the gospel is true, but I don't know exactly what that gospel is.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder if she's talking about, because we're obviously she's talking about connections and how the connections made it a religion, but I think she's actually talking about Mormon religion, because Brigham Young University is Mormon. It's not Christian. Okay, Mormons. I'll say this till I'm dead. Mormons aren't Christians. Stop saying you're Christians. You don't get to say it. Okay, Christians aren't even Christians half the time. Okay, so let's be real about it. So I think what she's trying to do is, I think she's equating connections and the Mormon fundamentalist theology, goes to school and is like, oh, I don't know if I believe that anymore. She's being super vague about it though.
know where to draw the line between
Life coaching. And
like
gospel.
life coaching and the gospel. And then I still remember one day, like, I was praying. I was like, I need like a very clear indicator, like if I'm going down the wrong road or if should change something in my life. And so I woke up one morning and I had the story of Jesus at the well with the woman. And a saying stuck out to me that he basically said, like, you should worship God in spirit and in truth. And I was like, wow. And like, I didn't think much of it at first, but it stayed with me for days. And I looked at that, like, we should worship in spirit and in truth. And I had just been doing one of those things and not the other. And so at that point, I was very convinced, like, this is too extreme. I need to do something, change something. But I wasn't sure how. Because, I want to honor my family. We're supposed to honor our parents.
Hear this.
And I felt that to disagree with them was sinful, and that God would be mad at me too.
And this is why fundamental religions and Mormonism and all fundamental religions is super scary, because a lot of them will use this in their religions. And it does say in the Bible, honor your thy father and mother. It does say that, right? But it doesn't mean fall them off a cliff with bad theology either. Okay? It means, if your parents are doing something wrong and forcing you to do something wrong, you don't honor that. You honor the goodness. You respect your parents, do what they're told, and everything else. It doesn't mean that you have to believe bullshit, is what I'm saying. Okay? And then that's why people, when they get to these texts and they proof text these things, they say, well, no, you have to believe everything I tell you to believe because you have to honor me. And that was drilled into them because Ruby was the person who was like this and still is to this day, to the point where she literally destroyed her family because she's like, you have to do this. Ruby is going to wake up one day. You mark my words. She is not going to be Mormon anymore. She's not going to be with Connections anymore. She's going to apologize to her entire family. And she's going to go on a path where the scales are going to fall off of her eyes. And she's going to see it all. She just is stuck in a place because it was built into her by her parents and her family and everything else. And it's a continuation of this garbage theology. Because make no mistake, theology is way different than the actual reality of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Okay, theology is great. It's good to understand. It's good to study it all the time. You're never going to get it right. You're never going to understand it. Nobody will. Okay, it's kind of the point. That's what faith comes in. That's where faith comes in. Okay, but the theologies of these religions, of all of them, and I mean even the secular religions, all of them are based on one thing: believe it or die. I'm not kidding. And that is fundamentally what she was taught. And that she had to go to Brigham Young University to think herself out of it.
Do you feel like you started to become aware of that as you spent time with your family than away from your family? That you were feeling the spirit more in like the calm
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Potentially.
I had friends that would point out to me when I'd come home from my family. They're like, "You're different. Like, you are going back to how you were in high school. Not that I was a terrible person in high school, but they're like, we can just see something like different about you."
Really?
So, like, I remember.
Did you see that in yourself?
So she's pointing out here that she was different when she was around her family. Then when she went to school, got away from her family. That's where she got to be herself. And that's why family vlogging, guys, is so... I know I'm bringing this back to religion, family vlogging, and everything else, but that's it. These kids are so sheltered inside of these family bubbles because they need to be there to work, that they cannot make lasting friendships and relationships, and those that they have are likely with other vloggers. Okay, they don't know the real world because they have a camera on them at all times. It can't be who they really want to be. They have to be careful what they say and everything else, which is not... literally not, they can't express themselves in a genuine way. Okay, their parents force them to work, and they don't get it, and they're groomed into this culture. And she's starting to realize when you're around your parents, you're someone different. You're taking on the objective reality of your mother instead of who you should be. So this is why kids need to get away from their families, and I mean all of them. I mean, and it's odd to see. It's usually with Christians and fundamental religious people, when their kids exit those bubbles, those homes, especially homeschool kids, they become someone completely different, and they're often developmentally arrested for a very long time, especially homeschool kids, because they did not get the social, in Christian and homeschool kids, they didn't get the social cues they needed, the understanding to do it all. And then when they get out and taste the real world, they are not prepared for it. Same thing with family vlogging, same thing with religious cultures. They aren't prepared for the real world because the parents don't want them to be. The parents don't want them to see the reality of what's actually going on. They need them here to work, or they need them here to be a part of the religion, or whatever the case may be. A lot of parents think that raising their children in fundamentalist religions is like them being like, I'm passing this on to my children. But I don't know the numbers, but in my personal experience as a pastor and somebody who grew up in church, almost every single family I've ever seen that held their kids at such a tight hold to religion and all this kind of stuff, I can't even think of one that went on to be in ministry, that didn't go off and do their own thing. And so many more just completely leave the religion. I spoke with a friend the other day, and he says, I don't even consider myself Christian anymore. Like, I don't believe anymore, right? You have such a tight hold on of your children in any ideology, okay, without letting them express themselves or be what they're really going to be, and you push that on your children, it's always going to end badly. And that's something I think my age parents are starting to really wake up to, for sure.
For me, looking back, like, God placed some people in my life, like really good mentors, that were able to help me through it. Really good bishops have been amazing.
Okay.
I've been able to reconnect with like a family that I was friends with in high school, and they've kind of taken me in as their own daughter. And so like I felt like I had them to go to.
That's the saddest part about this. Hey, passengers, they sit on their high horse of look how amazing a family we are. And now we get to see the future. Like, let's go back a few years and you watch their videos and how amazing and happy and everybody is, right? We know that's not true, obviously, because we've seen that. But this is it. This is the reality, and this is the outcome for a lot of these families. And I'm going to say a very high percentage. A lot of these kids are going to go no contact with their parents because they're going to realize later, to the degree which they were exploited and taken advantage of and coerced and bribed and everything else, and that there were predators and there were people wanting after them and making fun of them and doing everything else and bullied for it and not being able to live normal lives and not have normal friendships. These kids think it's normal what they are in right now because that's like kids like me who grew up in abusive homes, in abandonment homes and everything else. That was normal for me. I didn't realize it wasn't normal until I had my own kids. Until I was a grown-up myself and realized, holy shit, that wasn't normal. It wasn't. And so that's why so many of these kids, we've seen the AMAs from other influencer kids, I'm going no contact with my parents. I'm not speaking to them. These parents know this is coming down the pike. They know it. And they don't care because we now have a ton of proof for this exact phenomenon. And they don't care because they won't make the changes. And it's almost too late for most of them. Okay, Jonathan Sakona-Jolie is one of this example I'm going to talk about soon. Okay, this person is not going to have a relationship with his children. Such a self-centered twat. All that matters to this guy is the exploitation of his children for cash. He is not going to have a lasting relationship with his children, and he doesn't care. Okay, no parent that does this actually cares, because if they did, they wouldn't do what they're doing. Because they know the outcome, because we have multiple levels of proof and data now that show that none of these kids end up normal. None of them do. And they don't seem to care because they're narcissistic, they're selfish, and they make bad choices in the moment.
Definitely bubble.
My high school life was so stupid. But honestly, every day I try to do something new. And it
Expound.
sounds so strange.
I love it. I love it.
But I mean, obviously, being raised in Utah is frankly a bubble. I love Utah. It is a bubble.
Totally is.
It's not about just Utah. And that should scare everybody who watches this, who's a family vlogger, who wants to do this, who uses their children, who puts them in these bubbles, who grooms them into this lifestyle. Every day I try something new now because they got to escape it. These kids are going to get out of these situations, and they are going to wake up one day, and you are going to be without a relationship with your children, and you deserve it. Like, forget the laws. Consider the morality of what these people do. And I'm obviously using Shari as an example because she's the one speaking truth to this whole life experience that she had. This is all of them, everybody. They're all like this. Because inherently everything they show you is fake. Because when the camera goes on, they are somebody else. The camera turns off, they're likely ignored, and here's your iPad. That should scare everybody. And if you watch these people, you shouldn't.
Definitely a bubble.
My high school life was also a bubble. And I feel like now that I'm like moving on to a new phase of my life, I want to be able to like start my own life in a way and be able to move past everything. And so like I picked up yoga.
Let's go.
Never did yoga. I was like, this is actually pretty fun. Like this week,
It's not, though. Hurts.
St. Patrick's Day, I went and got Irish food. I was like just like really stupid things like that. Honestly.
And I know that's funny, and everyone's like, hey, but that's the truth and the reality of all this, guys. She's like, I never had Irish food because the parents didn't let them experience life. They had experienced life through the lens of a camera for what they think their audience needed to see and wanted to see. That's what it's so crazy if you think about this. Their lives were shaped, their experience were shaped by what the audience wanted. And if the audience didn't want one thing, the audience would make it known by not watching it. So if the audience wants a video of your child with their mouth open at the dentist's office and you see the big jump in the hits and the count on that video, you're going to do that again. Okay, if your kid, oh, my kid's at soccer, no one wants that, so I'm not going to film that anymore. You're not playing soccer anymore, right? You don't. If you understand this, family vloggers literally let their audience shape the experience their children have. I've never thought about it like that before, and I just had an epiphany, and that is crazy. We're talking about dance, and you know what I'm talking about when it comes to dance, right? Everly LeBrant was one of those first early ones I showed you guys. Her whole Instagram is her in tights and doing splits and stuff, and it was watched by 70% adult males. Okay, so you found something that hits on your algorithm in your view counts, and so you'll continue on that. If something doesn't, you will not continue on that. Alicia from Dr. Does, perfect example of this. What hits in her algorithm? Buying excessive amounts of bullshit and garbage that she feeds her children. Okay, that hidden algorithm, now that shapes the way her children eat. Hear that. Right? Buying excessive amounts of bullshit and presents hits her algorithm. And I mean, a lot of people say, well, that's great. Kids get spoiled. Sure. But that still shapes who they can become because of what they are given. They're not taught to be thankful. They're not taught to share. Nothing like that. They're taught what's theirs is theirs, mine is mine, and that's it. Think about this for a second. This is such a crazy epiphany. Family vlogs show you what you want to see and therefore shape the way that they parent their children for what their audience wants to see. Shit. It just goes on. I really wanted her to talk about being on the YouTube, and she really didn't. She just talked about connections and then just growing up in this stuff. But it was really eye-opening to the degree of like what we got to talk about. So, we touched on religion, but I think what we take away from this the most, what Shari has revealed to me, is that these worlds are very dangerous for kids. Not only are they not learning, a lot of them don't go to school properly, right? But their whole world is shaped by what an audience wants to see. Often predators too. And we should not be indulging in that. You should not be watching these people, giving them your social media currency. They don't deserve it. And none of these parents, I don't think, have ever been told if you ask them honestly, Like when you do something, what is it, going to Disneyland or, you know, doing this thing. If that doesn't hit for you in the algorithm, you didn't make a lot of views, would you do it again? Because they wouldn't. Right? And that's why you see a lot of things like, you know, the wife's life, sizing my daughter's chest to buy bras. That got a lot of hits, so she did it a bunch of times. Hey, Jess fam, with her daughter's identity right now is just capitalizing on it. Jonathan Sakona Jolie, capitalizing. They found something that stuck and they went with it. That's it. And these kids' lives and futures are shaped by what an audience needs to see. I don't need to see anything else. That's crazy. Shit. So thank you, Shari, for doing this, being brave enough. Unfortunately, your whole family had to fall apart because of what your mom and dad did, but at least you're getting out and enjoying it. And I hope you can have redemption with your family someday. I hope your mom wakes up to the bullshit that she has done, to what she is. And I think she knows this. The belief that she has, which take it for what it's worth, she thinks she's doing right by Jesus. But do you think Jesus wants your family broken up, Ruby? Do you think Jesus would be okay with what you've done here? You're such a fundamentalist believer in this gospel that you believe in, and yet that same gospel tells you that divorce and all that shit is wrong, and yet you're still engaged in that. Make it make sense, asshat. Anyway, everybody take a deep breath. Damn. That was a little deeper than I thought it was going to go. Yeah, and there's some stuff there that's probably going to get me some hate, but I don't care anymore, everybody. At some point, we just got to have honest conversations. And honest conversations to me means common sense. And if those common sense conversations trigger you, then I'm sorry that you have no common sense. But that is why this is the generation we have raised here. I think I don't know what I am. I'm born in 79. So whatever that is, the kids who grew up in the 80s and 90s who are now parents, we are so completely divided on a level of indoctrination, of ideologies and everything else, that it's never been more divided. Ever, ever, ever. But we need to come back to this realization that what we do to our kids matters for their futures. That means even like to the degree of where you force your kids to do things they don't want to do, like massive amounts of sports and everything else, the drugs they put in their body, they allowing them to do and make choices they shouldn't be making. That's all on the internet. And to top it all off, giving them unfettered access to social media, which is one of the most disgusting poisons that have ever been fed into a human culture ever. And we need to realize and wake up that that's the problem. And none of us are. So please do me a favor. If you are considering giving your child a phone, don't. If you're considering allowing your kid to go on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, don't. If you've already started down that path, reverse. Kids are adaptable. They will adapt. If you are scared that your child is going to hate you because you don't allow them to do Snapchat and TikTok and everything else, so be it. Because their safety is way more important than what they think of you at this point. You're not always going to have a great relationship with kids, but it is your job to protect them. It's not your job to be their friend and give them whatever they want. It's your job to raise functioning adults that will take over the leadership of our next society. That's your job. And we aren't doing it, everybody. We are coming to a place where I'm so scared for the future of my children are going to inhabit. And that's why we really, really need to stop being scared of having these conversations. I'm open to listen to everything. I am, and you know that. But there are some things that just common sense trumps everything else. And if you can't come to that conclusion, then all you want to do is yell and scream about it and say you're Nazi and Hitler and everything else, you don't belong in this conversation with us adults. Okay? Let the adults take over here. Thank you for joining me, especially for these tough conversations. They aren't often something I want to talk, and sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to talk about when I hear these things, and that's kind of where it's going. I appreciate you being here for these conversations and giving me grace when I get things wrong. But at the same time, I find that I'm given grace from a certain sect of the people and not from the other sect of the people. I just want to let you know that. Just saying. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So thank you again for being here. Don't forget how amazing, incredible, and invaluable you are, and that your children are to our futures. Okay? I'll see you tomorrow.